Hi, I'm Terzel Vasquez, producer at Stat Brand Studio, and I'm here today with Ryan Telford, VP of Health System Pharma Portfolio Strategy at Cencora. Ryan, how are you today?
Doing great.
Awesome. So, how does your team support the therapy journey today, and what outcomes are you most focused on improving?
Yeah, great. So my team we're on the Accelerate Pharmacy Solutions side within Cencora. So we're really focused on our downstream health system partners and helping them enable the best-in-class care for their patients. So this looks a lot like removing those access barriers that exist in those places that are high value for patients and for the health system. So think specialty pharmacy, think high cost infusion, think emerging therapies, and so our team of SMEs that are deep pharmacy experts coming from some of the best organizations in the country really are focused on helping health systems create sustainable models for patients and stakeholders to help patients get on therapies quick and with as minimal barriers as possible.
Excellent. And what are some of the biggest friction points that you see preventing innovative therapies from reaching the right patients quickly? And how does your team remove or reduce those barriers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we're at a point now where there's such a great nexus of we're at a point where there's great innovation happening within the care delivery side of the house, and also from the treatments that we see emerging from manufacturers. But we're also at a point where the complexity involved in all of this is at an all-time high, and so really the friction comes in. We see from a principle standpoint where there's stakeholders and process misalignment. If you boil it down, the stakeholders involved really want the same things. We want patients on therapy. We want outcomes as quick as possible. We want minimal side effects. So all of these are good things. And if you ask anybody involved, from a payer, from a manufacturer, from a health system, and critically the patient, that's where we want. And so really it's that breakdown of the processes and approach and alignment with those stakeholders that starts to create friction. So we get involved with health systems, really rethinking, what is their patient access strategy. So aligning the multiple stakeholders within the health system around that patient, whether that's revenue cycle, whether it's the providers, whether it's the specialty pharmacies, all around creating a process that is more streamlined and effective and gets treatment in patients' hands much more quickly.
And how do you work across Cencora to connect the dots for customers and patients? And can you share an example of how multiple Cencora capabilities come together to deliver high product end to end?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the areas we're super excited about in that space is the emerging therapy side of the house. So think our cell and gene therapies. We have been in a spot from a healthcare delivery system where the promise of personalized medicine has been around for decades. And so to see some of these therapies start to hit now is super exciting. But obviously that comes, like, now they're coming with a high cost, they're coming with high complexity, and health systems are really trying to navigate a lot of what is greenfield in that space to be able to create sustainable processes to be able to deliver that care to patients. When we think about these cell and gene therapies, it requires some deep connectivity all the way down from the patient to the provider and upstream to the manufacturer. And so where Cencora sits in the middle of that is really an exciting spot. So we've invested a lot upstream in supporting our manufacturer partners and how they bring these critical, curative, durable therapies to market from a logistics perspective, from a global consulting perspective, all the way to a distribution perspective. And then downstream, where we connect the dots, is really helping those health systems be able to create the infrastructure there to be able to have those patients come to their health systems, get care, a coordinated care, have that longitudinal management in ways that are unique to other areas of therapy. So being able to connect that thread all the way from the patient all the way to the manufacturer is really exciting to us as Cencora, and it feels good to kind of sit in that middle and try to facilitate that around those patients.
And which capabilities matter most when you're delivering reliable solutions at scale?
Yeah, a good question. So, obviously you have to have the operational foundation there. We as Cencora have to be able to deliver on our promise to be able to get, to have a supply chain that minimizes interruption and gets therapies to where they need to be on time. And I think we've invested a lot in that. We have to have great capabilities when we think about our consulting downstream, our enablement upstream. But I think critical of all of that is we have to be the best-in-class listeners to our stakeholders there. Like, if we're not listening to those people that are caring for the patients, our health systems, our providers there, if we're not listening to our stakeholders upstream on the manufacturer side, if we're not listening to payers in the market, if we're not listening to those folks that truly enable that care, we could build infrastructure that's pointed in the wrong direction. And so I think what we kind of carry at our core is, how are we listening to those folks that are really delivering this care, and how are we enabling them to get to where they need to go faster?
Looking ahead 12 to 24 months, what industry shift are you watching most closely, and how are you partnering internally and externally with customers and patients to help take healthcare to new heights together?
Yeah, a good question. I think for me, it's we're at this crossroads of amazing innovation, and a real call to demonstrate value in the care delivery chain. And so, with that, it kind of pushes us into some really interesting places, right? So we want to be able to enable that innovation that's going to create, therapies that are curing and treating things that have long been in our sights for decades as healthcare providers. But it's also pushing us to say, like, how are we delivering this in a way that's maximally impactful, but being good stewards of our healthcare dollars, and really pushing us to show that value. Like, how are we creating value in this, both from a patient perspective to those that are paying for the care? And I think where we're trying to partner with our health system customers is really to help tell that story. Health systems invested a ton in their infrastructure around that patient support channels to be able to make sure that those patients feel like they have the right care coordination team around them from start to finish. It's a great story to tell. We see great outcomes in that space, and what we're on a mission to do is help tell that story much more loudly and with a lot more data. And so we're excited about that journey. I know our health system partners are as well, and a place like here, like Assembly, is a great spot for us to be able to connect those dots upstream and downstream.
Well, thank you so much for joining us at the Assembia conference, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.